Awareness is the seed from which all transformation grows, and it is the one thing that separates the person who drifts through life from the one who rises above it. Most people live in a state of unconscious acceptance. They eat what is placed in front of them. They buy what is advertised the loudest, and they believe what they are told without questioning deeper truth. But awareness changes everything. When you become aware, you no longer operate on autopilot. You begin to recognize that every action, every choice, and every product you allow into your body or into your mind carries with it a consequence, either lifting you higher or pulling you down. Refined oil in this case is not only about health. It becomes a symbol. It represents all those things that look convenient on the surface, but, when accepted without thought, quietly diminish your strength over time. Think about the average person walking into a store. Shelves are lined with products that shine with attractive labels, promises of purity, claims of energy and lightness. Most don't look beyond the label. They don't research the impact. They don't ask, what will this do to my body 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And so they make the easy purchase without awareness. That same pattern repeats itself in every dimension of life. People consume not only food without awareness, but also ideas, beliefs, and habits. And what you consume, whether physical or mental, shapes your reality. If you accept refined oil into your diet every day, your body pays the price. If you accept limiting beliefs into your mind every day, your future pays the price. Awareness is like a light being switched on in a dark room. The moment you awaken to the truth that you are not obligated to accept what is given to you, you gain freedom. The same is true for nations. When a country becomes aware of its strengths, of its power, of its potential, it no longer bows to dependency. It stops importing weakness and starts cultivating its own strength. India today is standing at that very point of awareness. For decades, people and governments acted without questioning, but a new wave of awareness is rising, and that awareness is what the world notices with both admiration and fear. Awareness is uncomfortable at first because it demands responsibility. Once you become aware that refined oil damages your body, you cannot unknow it. Once you realize that certain patterns are draining your life, you cannot pretend they are harmless. Awareness forces you to take ownership of your choices, and ownership is where real growth begins. The person who is aware will not just follow the crowd, because the crowd usually moves toward convenience, not truth. The aware individual stands apart, and so does the aware nation. That separation creates strength. Look at how awareness changes even small daily actions. You begin to read labels. You begin to ask questions. You begin to look beyond marketing campaigns. On a deeper level, you begin to observe your own mind. Why am I reacting this way? Why do I believe this thought? Who told me that success has to look a certain way? Awareness strips away illusions. It removes the veil that covers reality and allows you to see things as they are. In the case of refined oil, the veil is the idea that it is clean, modern, or necessary. But once awareness cuts through, you see it for what it truly is, an artificial product that robs vitality instead of nourishing it. Now imagine this on the scale of a nation. When 1 billion people awaken to what they consume, when they realize they no longer need to depend on products that weaken them, a ripple effect spreads across the globe. Awareness transforms not only individuals but entire cultures. It shifts economies. It shifts industries, It even shifts political power. America does not fear India because of its size alone. It fears the potential of an awakened population that no longer accepts weakness as normal. Awareness of refined oil is just the beginning, a small doorway that leads to greater consciousness about health, wealth, and independence. The truth is, people often resist awareness because it disturbs their comfort. It is easier to remain asleep, to continue with habits that feel familiar. But the cost of ignorance is far greater than the discomfort of awareness. When you are unaware, you give away your power to external forces, whether that is corporations selling harmful products or nations dictating policies. When you are aware, you reclaim that power. You start making choices aligned with your true interests, not the interests of those who profit from your ignorance. That is why awareness is the ultimate freedom. It cannot be controlled once it takes root, because a conscious mind cannot be fooled in the same way again. Every great revolution, every shift in history, begins with awareness. It begins with someone saying, "Wait a minute, this doesn't serve me, this doesn't strengthen me, this doesn't align with who I want to be." That moment is small but powerful. It creates a new path. Refined oil may seem like a simple product, but behind it lies a massive chain of supply, profit, dependency, and influence. The moment awareness enters, that entire chain is threatened. People stop buying, demand falls, alternatives rise. Independence grows, and just like that, one conscious choice becomes a movement. Awareness is the first and greatest key, because without it, no change can happen. You cannot change what you do not see. You cannot improve what you do not acknowledge. The moment awareness arrives, possibility opens. What once seemed fixed becomes fluid. What once seemed impossible becomes achievable. And it all begins with that single light switching on in your mind, reminding you that you always have a choice, and that choice is the most powerful tool you will ever possess. Health and wealth are not separate entities, they are two expressions of the same principle. When the body thrives, the mind sharpens, creativity expands, and opportunities flow more freely. When the body declines, energy weakens, focus scatters, and the ability to create wealth diminishes. On a personal level, health is the foundation upon which every form of success is built. On a national level, the same law applies. A nation's vitality mirrors the vitality of its people. If the individuals that make up the population are weak, lethargic, and unwell, that nation cannot stand tall in the face of global competition. Refined oil becomes more than just a dietary hazard. It becomes a metaphor for the hidden compromises that eat away at strength, both in the body of a person and in the body of a nation. When you consider wealth, most people think about money. They imagine numbers in a bank account, property, or investments. But real wealth has always been rooted in the energy to live, to work, to dream, to act. Without health, no amount of money has value. You can possess fortunes, but if your body is chained by sickness, that fortune is only a weight. The same is true for nations. A country may boast of resources, technologies, or military strength, but if its people are drained of vitality, it is building power on shaky ground. America has always known this, and that is why it studies other nations carefully. What America fears in India is not just economic progress. It fears the moment India's population, vast in number, becomes vibrantly healthy, disciplined, and aware. That is a force no economy can ignore. Refined oil is the silent thief in this story. It promises convenience, affordability, and modernity, yet it steals vitality from the body. Over years of consumption, it builds weakness where there should have been strength. It clogs where there should have been flow. It numbs where there should have been vitality. Individuals who consume such products regularly may not notice immediately, but time always reveals the truth. Energy fades, disease grows, and potential shrinks. And just as individuals suffer quietly from these choices, nations too suffer when dependency on such products becomes normalized. The health crisis of the people becomes the wealth crisis of the nation. If you observe history, nations that rose to power always carried an element of vitality. It was not only their weapons or their wealth, but their ability to sustain themselves, to produce their own food, to build resilience from within. Dependency was always the weakness that toppled empires. Rome, Britain, countless powers fell when vitality was drained and people lost the discipline of health. In today's world, vitality is not only about soldiers or armies. It is about the energy of the working class, the sharpness of the youth, the endurance of the older generation. India, with its enormous population, holds within it a reservoir of potential wealth unlike anything else in the world. But that wealth will only manifest when the health of its people rises above compromise. That is the silent equation America watches with concern. On an individual level, think about how much more you can achieve when you are healthy. A person with strong energy can work longer, think clearer, and recover faster from setbacks. They innovate more, create more, and inspire more. Now magnify that reality by 1 billion people. Imagine an entire nation of strong, vibrant individuals, each contributing energy and creativity to the collective progress. That is not just wealth, it is unstoppable momentum, and the fear of such momentum is real, because once unleashed, it cannot be contained by foreign policies or economic barriers. It becomes a natural force of expansion. Wealth built without health is temporary. It collapses under its own weight because the energy required to sustain it is missing. That is why refined oil, though it seems small in the grand scheme of things, represents something much larger. It represents a subtle sabotage of vitality. It represents the kind of dependency that weakens quietly until the damage feels normal. But awareness exposes this truth, and when individuals begin to protect their health, they are also protecting their wealth. Nations, in the same way, must guard against dependencies that appear harmless but erode strength over decades. Consider also the psychological dimension of health and wealth. A weak body often produces a weak spirit. Low energy breeds low ambition. Chronic fatigue leads to chronic fear. But when health is nurtured, confidence grows. Energy fuels not just work but vision. People with vitality think bigger, aim higher, and push further. For nations, this collective psychology is everything. A healthy population believes in progress, trusts in its capacity to rise, and projects strength on the world stage. America senses this shift in India, and that is why fear grows, not fear of the present, but fear of what the future holds when health and wealth align. When a nation begins to value the health of its people as much as its economic growth, it creates a balanced foundation. Factories, industries, and markets can flourish, but they rest on the shoulders of workers whose vitality sustains them. Schools and universities can expand, but they produce leaders whose health allows them to endure the pressures of responsibility. Families can prosper, but only when the individuals within them have the energy to nurture and support one another. In every way, health is the invisible currency that makes all visible wealth possible. And so, when we speak of refined oil, we are not simply speaking of food. We are speaking of choices that either protect or destroy the very base of wealth. On a personal level, choosing health ensures that your dreams are not compromised by sickness. On a national level, protecting health ensures that the nation's rise is not crippled by hidden weakness. America watches closely because it understands the equation. A nation of healthy, aware individuals is a nation destined for wealth beyond measurement. And that is where fear is born, not in India's present position, but in the unstoppable power of its potential. Self-reliance has always been the hidden key to true freedom. Whether for an individual or a nation, the moment you depend on something outside yourself for survival, you hand over power. That dependency may seem small, but over time it grows into chains that are difficult to break. This is why self-reliance is more than a practical habit. It is the new currency of power in the modern world. Money can be devalued, resources can be restricted, alliances can be broken, but self-reliance endures because it is rooted in the ability to generate strength from within. When you decide not to depend on refined products that weaken you, you are declaring independence. You are saying, I choose strength over convenience. I choose long-term freedom over short-term comfort. On a personal scale, this decision changes health, confidence, and destiny. On a national scale, it shifts economies and alters the balance of global power. Think about the way dependency operates. A person who cannot live without a certain product or habit becomes controlled by it. A nation that cannot operate without imports of certain goods becomes controlled by those who supply it. Refined oil is a symbol of this dependency. It looks harmless after all. It is easily available, cheap, and marketed as modern. But the truth is, the more you consume it, the more dependent you become on something that does not truly serve you. This is not only about health, but about economics and psychology. When a people depend on something external, they lose their confidence in creating alternatives. They begin to believe they cannot function without what is being handed to them. That mindset is the most dangerous form of weakness. Self-reliance flips that script. When you begin to produce for yourself, when you choose natural alternatives, when you stop reaching out for products that only drain you, you reclaim control. That control is powerful because it means you are no longer vulnerable to manipulation. On an individual level, a person who cooks with natural oils, grows their own food, or makes conscious choices about what they consume is not easily swayed by marketing or pressure. On a national level, when India produces its own solutions, builds its own industries, and supports its own people, it shifts from being a consumer of weakness to being a creator of strength. That shift terrifies nations that profit from India's dependency. America knows that when India stops buying what weakens it, it becomes unstoppable. Consider the way global power has always worked. Nations rise not by consuming more, but by producing more. Those who create, those who innovate, those who harness their own resources are the ones who dictate terms. Those who depend are the ones who must accept terms. Self-reliance is the dividing line. That is why America has long feared the potential of India's self-reliance. A nation with over 1 billion people choosing independence in their daily lives, refusing to buy products that strip away vitality, creates a shockwave in the world economy. It reduces dependency on foreign corporations, strengthens local markets, and builds resilience that cannot be broken by external pressure. Self-reliance also develops character. A person who learns to rely on their own energy, their own choices, and their own discipline becomes unshakable. They no longer panic when external circumstances change, because their stability does not depend on the outside world. The same principle applies to nations. If India continues to depend on foreign refined oil, its economy is tied to the supply chains and political interests of others. But if it develops and invests in alternatives, whether through natural oils, local industries, or innovative technology, it builds a foundation that cannot be easily manipulated. That foundation becomes wealth in itself, a currency stronger than dollars or gold. The beauty of self-reliance is that it multiplies. When one person chooses it, they inspire another. When one community practices it, others begin to follow. And when a nation embraces it, the ripple effect expands into every area of life. Food, health, energy, industry, all begin to align with the principle of independence. The chains of dependency begin to weaken, and the nation rises with strength rooted in itself. America fears this momentum because it understands the law of compounding. A billion small acts of self-reliance add up to a tidal wave of power. On a personal level, imagine how different your life becomes when you stop depending on what weakens you. You begin to take responsibility for your choices. You learn new skills. You develop discipline. You discover that you are capable of far more than you were taught to believe. You stop waiting for solutions from outside and start creating solutions within. This shift is liberating, and it builds confidence that spreads into every area of life. Nations undergo the same transformation. When India realizes it has always had the capacity to stand strong without leaning on products that diminish it, its confidence will manifest in politics, economics, and culture. Self-reliance also brings clarity. Dependency clouds judgment because it ties you to fear. You fear losing what you depend on. But once you are self-reliant, fear dissolves. A nation that knows it can feed its people, fuel its industries, and maintain its health without foreign dependency does not bow to external pressure. That nation negotiates from a position of strength, not weakness. This is what makes America wary of India's rise. It is not the current state of affairs that creates fear, but the possibility of what India becomes when self-reliance becomes its new currency. At its core, self-reliance is not about isolation. It is not about rejecting the world. It is about engaging with the world from a position of power rather than weakness. When you are self-reliant, you can choose freely. You can trade, you can collaborate, you can share. But you are never forced, never controlled. That freedom is priceless. For individuals, it is the freedom to live with dignity. For nations, it is the freedom to stand tall on the global stage. And in a world where power often shifts according to who depends on whom, self-reliance becomes the most valuable currency of all. Every person and every nation carries within them strengths that are not immediately visible. These are the hidden reserves, the qualities and resources that lie dormant until the right moment calls them forth. On the surface, you may see limitation, you may see weakness, you may see challenges that seem insurmountable, but beneath that surface lies an energy that has yet to be tapped. This is the power of hidden strengths, and it is what separates those who merely survive from those who ultimately dominate. India is a living example of this principle. For decades, it was underestimated. Dismissed as chaotic or developing, yet slowly, steadily, its hidden strengths have begun to surface. And this is why America fears India, not because of what is obvious today, but because of what is hidden and waiting to emerge. Hidden strength reveals itself only through awareness and discipline. It is like a reservoir deep underground, invisible to the naked eye, but immense in capacity. Most people never discover their hidden strength because they live at the surface level. They rely only on what is easy, what is immediately available, and what they have already seen. But when circumstances demand more, when life pushes you to your limits, that is when hidden strength begins to rise. For an individual, it might show up in the form of resilience, determination, or creativity that they never knew they had. For a nation, it shows up in innovation, unity, and a culture that can withstand pressure from the outside world. India's true wealth does not rest merely in its resources or its markets. It rests in its people. Over 1 billion individuals carry traditions, knowledge, skills, and creativity that stretch back thousands of years. This cultural and intellectual reservoir is one of India's hidden strengths. America may see India as a consumer market, a workforce, or a competitor in technology, but what it cannot fully measure is the depth of untapped human potential that lies within the nation. Once this potential is mobilized, once the people collectively realize the strength they hold, it becomes a force that no external power can stop. The metaphor of refined oil fits here as well. On the surface, refined oil looks pure, but the hidden truth is that it is damaging. In the same way, on the surface, India may appear to face challenges of poverty, infrastructure, or inequality, but the hidden truth is that beneath those challenges exists resilience, adaptability, and creativity that no other nation possesses on the same scale. What seems like weakness can transform into strength once awareness rises. America fears this transformation because it knows that hidden strengths, once unleashed, do not just level the playing field, they tilt it entirely. Consider how hidden strengths appear in moments of crisis. An individual who thinks they cannot go on suddenly finds energy when their family is at risk. A student who doubts their intelligence suddenly achieves brilliance when driven by passion. Nations, too, reveal their strengths under pressure. India has repeatedly shown this in times of adversity, whether through its independence movement, its resilience in economic crises, or its rapid growth in sectors where no one expected it to succeed. Each time the world has doubted India, it has surprised them by tapping into these hidden reserves. And each time it does, the fear in its competitors grows deeper. What makes hidden strength so powerful is that it cannot be measured by conventional tools. You can count money, you can weigh resources, you can calculate military power, but you cannot measure the inner will of 1 billion people. You cannot chart the innovation that will arise tomorrow from a child in a village, or the unity that will emerge in the face of external threats. This is the unseen energy America cannot control, and it is why fear lingers. Because while visible power can be managed, hidden strength is unpredictable and limitless once awakened. On a personal level, when you uncover your hidden strengths, you begin to live differently. You stop defining yourself by your weaknesses and instead focus on the untapped energy waiting within. You realize that challenges are not obstacles, but triggers designed to bring out your best. The same principle applies to India. challenges that seem heavy, whether they are economic, political, or social, are actually triggers awakening its deeper strengths. Each problem forces innovation, each obstacle sparks resilience, and each struggle builds unity. This process is slow but unstoppable, and once it reaches momentum, it transforms weakness into power. Culture is another layer of hidden strength. India's culture is not just history, it is an active force shaping the future. The values of family, spirituality, and perseverance create a foundation that is not easily shaken by modern pressures. While other nations may fracture under stress, India's cultural roots hold it steady. This depth of culture is often invisible to those outside, but it is precisely what gives India the ability to rise in ways that statistics cannot predict. America, with all its power, does not carry this depth of civilizational strength. That imbalance creates unease because it means India's potential is not bound by the same limits. Technology and innovation are further examples of hidden strength. For years, India was seen only as a place of cheap labor, yet today it is one of the fastest growing technology hubs in the world. What seemed like a weakness, a large, low-cost workforce, has transformed into a strength, producing innovators, entrepreneurs, and global leaders. This shift reveals that hidden strengths often disguise themselves as limitations. What appears to be a burden is, in truth, a gift waiting for the right conditions to unfold. When hidden strengths come alive, they do not just change the nation that holds them, they shift the balance of global power. America does not fear India's current economy. It fears what that economy will look like when powered by the creativity, resilience, and vitality of over 1 billion awakened people. It fears the innovation that will rise when dependency falls. It fears the cultural confidence that will emerge when awareness spreads. It fears the unstoppable momentum of hidden strengths turning visible, because once that process begins, it cannot be reversed. Choice is the greatest gift every individual and every nation possesses, yet it is often the most underestimated. Each day, life presents options, some small and some monumental, and the decision taken at that moment becomes a thread in the fabric of destiny. Most people believe destiny is something predetermined, something written long before they were born, but in reality, destiny is the sum of choices, repeated over time, compounded in silence, until they create an outcome that seems inevitable. This is why choice is not casual. It is the force that shapes the direction of life. The food you choose to eat, the thoughts you choose to entertain, the products you choose to buy, and the beliefs you choose to accept. All of these decisions accumulate and form the reality you live in. When you choose refined oil, for instance, you are not merely making a dietary selection. You are choosing a path that will affect your health, energy, and longevity. That one decision, repeated hundreds of times over months and years, creates consequences that no marketing label can hide. In the same way, when a nation continues to choose dependency on products that harm its people or weaken its systems, it is setting in motion a destiny of weakness. But when individuals choose differently, when they decide to say no to what drains them and yes to what strengthens them, the destiny of the nation changes as well. This is the hidden power of choice. It compounds quietly but delivers loudly. Choice is also the ultimate equalizer. You may not control the circumstances of your birth, your environment, or your initial opportunities, but you always control your response. You control what you accept and what you reject. The wealthiest person in the world and the poorest individual both wake up each day with the same basic power, the ability to choose. And the one who uses that power wisely will inevitably shape a destiny far beyond what circumstances suggest. Nations operate under the same principle. They may face limitations, external pressures, or even exploitation, but as long as they retain the power to choose, they hold the pen that writes their future. Every great story of transformation begins with a choice. The decision to no longer accept mediocrity, the choice to rise above fear, the choice to reject weakness disguised as convenience. Refined oil is symbolic of that choice. It represents the easy path, the path of acceptance, the path of dependency. But refusing it represents a deeper choice. The choice to take responsibility for health, for independence, and for vitality. That choice, when made collectively, is what shifts the future of nations. America fears India not because of what it consumes, but because of the moment it decides to stop consuming what weakens it. That single collective choice can tilt the balance of global power. On a personal level, choice molds identity. Each time you make a decision, you are not just affecting an outcome, you are shaping who you are becoming. A person who consistently chooses discipline over comfort becomes disciplined. A person who consistently chooses growth over stagnation becomes expansive. Identity is not a fixed trait. It is built moment by moment through choices. In the same way, nations craft their identity not through slogans or speeches, but through the choices of their people. India's identity is evolving, and with every conscious decision its people make, the destiny of the nation shifts toward strength. Choice also demands responsibility. Many resist it because responsibility feels heavy, but without it, growth is impossible. When you blame circumstances, governments, or corporations for your state, you are denying the power of your own choices. But the moment you recognize that you always have a choice, no matter how small, you reclaim authority over your destiny. This is liberating because it means your future is not determined by what is handed to you, but by what you decide to accept or reject. For nations, this same principle applies. The future of India is not determined by what foreign powers offer or deny it, is determined by the choices made within its borders, in its homes, in its markets, and in its communities. Every economy is shaped by choice. Every dollar spent is a vote for the kind of world you want to live in. When people choose to buy refined oil, they are casting a silent vote for dependency, for health crises, and for weakness. When they choose healthier, natural alternatives, they are voting for vitality, for independence, and for strength. These small choices, multiplied across millions of people, become policies, industries, and economies. This is how individual decisions create national destinies. America understands this dynamic, and it is why India's choices matter on a global scale. The fear lies not in India's present consumption, but in its potential refusal. The day India chooses differently is the day its destiny shifts irrevocably. Choice is also about vision. It requires the ability to look beyond the immediate convenience and see the long-term consequence. It is easy to choose what feels good in the moment, but wisdom comes from choosing what serves you in the future. Health is not built overnight. It is built through choices made consistently over years. Wealth is not built by chance. It is built by repeated decisions to save, invest, and grow. National power is not built in headlines. It is built through years of conscious choices by its citizens. India's rise is not a sudden event. It is the result of countless small decisions accumulating over time, decisions that, when aligned with strength, lead to greatness. On the deepest level, choice is a declaration of independence. It is the moment you say, I will not be controlled by habit, by convenience, or by external influence. I will decide my path. That declaration shifts energy, it awakens hidden strength, and it creates momentum. When enough individuals make that declaration, it becomes a movement. When a nation makes it, it becomes a revolution. And revolutions are not born from grand speeches, they are born from choices repeated daily, until they create a destiny no one can deny.